In this video, we're going to talk about the basics of a Voronoi diagram. First of all, a diagram that divides a plane into a number of regions is called a Voronoi diagram. The regions are called cells. Cells are divided by boundaries called edges. Each cell contains exactly one site. The intersection of edges are called vertices. The edges are perpendicular bisectors of the sites on the diagram. Look at the Voronoi diagram on the right. Each site, A, B, C, D, represents the location of a coffee shop. Jennifer is looking for the closest coffee shop. She's currently located on the point 9, 5. Which shop should she go to? Let's go ahead and find 9, 5. So if you find 9 on the x-axis and then 5 on the y-axis, here is Jennifer's location. She's at the point 9, 5. The idea of Voronoi diagrams is that we have these cells, which each cell contains exactly one site. So right here, this is the cell that contains site A. And because Jennifer is inside of that cell, she is closest to site A. The next day, Jennifer finds herself on the point 2, 3. Let's go ahead and locate the point 2, 3, which is right here. Which coffee shop is she closest to today? Notice this right here is an edge. It is the perpendicular bisector of points A and C if I were to connect them with a line segment. You can see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4 units away from the edge EF. 1, 2, 3, 4. So Jennifer would be equidistant in this case to both A and C. So EF is the perpendicular bisector for sides A and C. To write the equation of EF, you have to remember that this is a vertical line and the x value here is 2. So the equation is going to be x equal 2. Color the perpendicular bisector of sites B and C yellow. Find its equation. Now we're moving on to two other sites, B and C. Notice this is a line segment that contains B and C. In order for you to figure out the perpendicular bisector, the one that you're going to shade in yellow is going to be this one right here. In order for us to find the equation of the perpendicular bisector, which is in yellow, we are going to have to find two things. One, we're going to have to find the midpoint of segment BC because bisector means to cut in half. So we're going to have to figure out where the midpoint is for BC. The other thing is we're going to have to find the slope of BC, which clearly is going to have a positive slope because the line is increasing, but we need the perpendicular slope because the perpendicular bisector is going to be perpendicular to segment BC. Let's start by identifying the points. B is going to be the ordered pair 4, 8, and C is going to be the ordered pair -2, 2. Now I'm going to figure out first the midpoint. So the midpoint is basically just x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, which is 2 over 2, 10 over 2, or 1, 5. And if I were to go ahead and plot this, you would see 1, 5. Sure enough, that's where the midpoint is located. The second thing is figure out the gradient, which is the slope. I'm going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and I get -6 over -6, which is going to give me a +1. Remember that we are interested in the perpendicular slope, so because I have a +1 as my slope, which again makes sense because this is the slope of the line in blue, I'm looking for the equation of the line in yellow, then the perpendicular slope, and the upside down T means perpendicular, that's the symbol, it's going to be the negative reciprocal. So 1 is 1 over 1. When you flip it, it's still 1 over 1. But because it's positive, the negative reciprocal is going to be -1. So now I know that I'm looking for the equation of the line that passes through the point 1, 5 and has a slope of -1. I'm going to write this in point slope form just because it is easier. So I'm going to write y minus y1, which is 5, is equal to m, which is the slope, -1, times x minus 1. On the IB exam, if they do not ask you a particular form for the equation of your line, you could leave your answer like this in point slope form and you would get full marks. If, however, they were to ask you for, let's say, slope-intercept form, which is gradient-intercept form on the IB exam, then you're going to have to isolate the y. So right now I would go ahead and distribute the -1, and that would give me a final answer of y is equal to -x plus 6. And so that would be my answer in gradient intercept form. We're going to move on and we're going to do the same thing for sites A, B. Let's locate sites A, B. The ordered pair at A is the point 6, 2, and the ordered pair at B is the point 4, 8. I'm going to go ahead and write those down. Once again, we're looking for the perpendicular bisector of AB. If I connect AB right here, I can clearly see the perpendicular bisector, which is the edge here, is going to be this one in red. And in order for me to figure out the equation of the line in red, I'm going to have to find the midpoint of AB, the slope of AB, and then the perpendicular slope, which is the negative reciprocal. So let's go ahead and start by finding the midpoint. The midpoint is going to be 6 plus 4 over 2, 2 plus 8 over 2, which is 10 over 2, 10 over 2, which is 5, 5. The slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. 6 over -2 is -3. Remember, -3 is the same as -3 over 1, so the perpendicular slope is the negative reciprocal. You flip it and change the sign. Now I'm interested in figuring out the equation that passes through the midpoint with a perpendicular slope of 1/3. I'm going to go ahead and use point slope form. Y minus 5 is equal to 1/3 times x minus 5. Once again, if this were the IB exam and they do not specify which way they want the answer, you could leave it like this for full marks. Otherwise, you're going to have to go ahead and rewrite it possibly in slope-intercept form. So you're going to distribute y minus 5 is equal to 1/3 x minus 5/3. Take your calculator to add 5 to both sides. The calculator will be able to do the fraction for you. You get 1/3 x plus 10/3 as your final answer in slope-intercept form. Last but not least, we're going to do the same thing with sides A and D. We're looking for the perpendicular bisector and we're going to shade it blue. Here's A, here's D. If I connect A and D, I'm looking for the perpendicular bisector to shade in blue. Therefore, this is right here, the perpendicular bisector. I'm going to have to figure out the slope and then find the negative reciprocal. And I'm going to have to find the midpoint of A and D. So A is the point 6, 2, D is the point 1, -3. Figure out the midpoint. Once you get your answer, you can leave it as a fraction, or if you prefer, you can put it as a decimal. To figure out the slope, we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, -5 over -5, which is +1, which means my perpendicular slope is going to be -1. Remember that we want the equation that passes through the midpoint with the perpendicular slope. In point slope form, it's y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Distribute y plus 1/2 is equal to -x plus 7/2. If I subtract 1/2 from both sides, I get -x plus 6/2, which is just 3. So my final answer is y equals -x plus 3. One of the other things that I want to review with you is standard form of an equation of a line. If you were to take an answer such as y equals 1/3 x plus 10/3, and they tell you they want this in general form or standard form, in the form ax plus by plus d is equal to 0, there are 3 requirements in order for you to write this in standard form. One of them is that the x is positive, so the coefficient for x has to be positive. The second one is that there can be no fractions or decimals in your equation at all. And the third one is going to be that it has to be set equal to 0. Clearly, right now, I have fractions. So the first thing I want to do is multiply the entire equation by 3 because 3 is the least common denominator. I will end up with 3y is equal to 1x plus 10. Then because I already have the x positive, all I have to do is set the equation equal to 0. I get 0 equals x minus 3y plus 10. And if you prefer, you can rewrite this so that it is equal to 0 on the right hand side. This would be the exact same answer, but now written in standard form or general form. So there are 3 equations of a line that you should be familiar with. One of them is going to be point slope form. Y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. The second one is y equals mx plus c, which is slope-intercept form. And then of course we have standard form, ax plus by plus d is equal to 0, which these are the 3 requirements you can't forget in order for you to write this in standard form. The distance formula is going to come into play when we do a lot of these Voronoi problems. All of these formulas are in your formula packet, which is great because you don't have to memorize them per se. The midpoint formula is x2 plus x1 over 2, comma y2 plus y1 over 2. When I did the examples, you probably noticed that I did x1 plus x2. It doesn't matter because we're just going to take the average anyway. So whether you do x2 plus x1 or x1 plus x2, it doesn't matter. The gradient does matter, okay? So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It's the difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. You could say y1 minus y2, but then you would have to be consistent over x1 minus x2. But it's definitely the changes of the y's over the changes of the x's. Area of a triangle, just in case you've forgotten, is 1/2 base times height, and the area of a circle is pi radius squared.